Welcome to the Momentum Podcast, where we feature founders and industry leaders who are bold, brilliant, and built to last. I'm Theresa Bassett, author, speaker, and CEO of the Diamond Group, an SMB sales and marketing agency. I'm here to share real stories and strategies from founders and leaders breaking through to their next level. I love helping small businesses grow. My mission: to help entrepreneurs just like you build sustainable, scalable businesses that align with your purpose and create lasting impact. On this show, we sit down with small business owners, growth stage founders, and change makers who are navigating the messy middle of scaling. Episodes typically run about 30 to 40 minutes, packed with insights, practical takeaways, and raw conversations. Let's get into it. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Momentum Podcast. I'm Theresa Bassett, CEO of the Diamond Group and our host today. And I'm super excited to have our next guest, Leslie Lane with Studio 13 here today. Welcome, Leslie. I'm so glad that you're with me.
Thank you so much, Theresa. It's a pleasure to be here.
You have quite an impressive, momentous history, Leslie. When I was reading about your journey, I know that you have so much to offer our listeners today, and I was so excited to have you share your, twists in the road, the things that have kept you on the path for as long as you have, because as far as I understand it, you're not only a third generation entrepreneur in this business, this is a family owned business, but also third generation woman owned business owner. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you end up here? How did you end up being next in line for the throne, so to speak?
Well, you say momentum, and I've got to say, sometimes in my career, it felt more like an avalanche that I couldn't stop. This has just been an interesting time. So, yes, I am a third generation photographer, a third generation entrepreneur. My grandparents did it, then my mother and my stepfather did it. And when I was in my early 20s, my stepfather had a stroke, and I really was not supposed to take over the business because we do corporate photography. We work in marketing and advertising. And back then, girls couldn't do this.
Wow.
Only boys could do this. And so both of my brothers had come to Indiana to work with my stepfather to take over this business, and they both declined. My stepfather was not an easy man. Looking at him now, I understand him a whole lot better now that I've been in his shoes for the past 30 years. I understand him a lot better than I did. But I basically took over the business because he was taken out of the business and there was no other choice.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, you say no other choice, but at some point you had to say yes. So you saw the opportunity, you saw the need, and then you had to say yes. What was that process like? Was that an easy yes, or was it like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this?
Well, when you're young, you think you can do anything. And so, I was in my early 20s, and certainly if my parents can do it, it can't be that hard, And so my first yes was due to lack of experience and exorbitant enthusiasm. And my dad had an assistant and a lab technician who believed in me. And so my mom was in Florida at the time. She was helping take care of my stepfather. And so it was me and my assistant, my longtime assistant, that decided I could do it. Now staying in it, that's a different story. But the first yes that I said was just basically because I had somebody who believed in me and I was too young to know any better.
Wow, but that's so powerful. And I wanted to just pause for that moment because I knew somewhere in there was a yes. And I love what you said about someone behind the scenes believing in you, maybe seeing something that you couldn't even see in yourself.
For sure, because I had zero experience. At the time, I was working in the business, but I did what girls did back then, and I was the office administrator. And that's what my dad felt like that I could really do. I could answer the phone. I could type out the quotes. I could, do the bookkeeping. Those were things that I was capable of doing. And so I had to teach myself how to be a photographer because my only experience was shooting the yearbook at university.
Wow. What a cool background, though, to come into it, to see the need rise to the challenge to learn. You obviously had been around it for a while, so you knew a lot of the
Mhm.
language and the parts and pieces. But you had such cool experience and perspective going into it, coming from that administrative side too.
Correct. And the business was in our home. So it was, we had an apartment on the second floor, the first floor and the basement, plus a carriage house was all the business. And so there was never a day I wasn't in the business. And you could not come downstairs in your pajamas. You could not come down without your hair done. I mean, you came from the time I was 12 years old when we moved that business into our home, you came down the
Wow.
stairs dressed for work. And so I knew all the employees knew me, the clients knew me. It was very much ingrained in me from the time I was a child.
Oh my goodness. So you were literally groomed, not just groomed, but like grew up in like physically in the business. That is so
Physically in the business,
physically
yes.
in the business, which, nothing but exposure and experiential learning is as powerful, right? As
Yes,
that.
and I knew how to process my own film by then. I knew how to print my own prints by then. So, I mean, I had a camera in my hand from the time I was 6. I had
Yeah.
just never done it for pay, and I had
Yeah.
never done it to please a client. I'd never done an ad campaign. I'd never been part of marketing. So it was a like drinking water out of a fire hose to begin with.
Wow. Wow. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but now you're 30 years down the road, right? In this,
Yes.
which is just congratulations. It's such a
Thank you.
tremendous accomplishment. Yeah, absolutely. And, we just hit our 30th year as well. And I know that for us, like it has involved a lot of pivots and a lot of different yeses along those points because you hit these little inflection points and a lot of times you have to take a leap of faith into something or a direction that maybe you didn't see coming. Tell us about that a little bit, what it's taken to stay in momentum in the business, and have you reached it, have you found any of those inflection points, have you had to pivot along the journey, because I know of course marketing has changed so much.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, Teresa. With us both having 30 years of experience, I don't think we could have come into this industry at a more tumultuous time. I
Yeah.
mean, with more things that we've tripped over, more times we've skinned our knees than the last 30 years. So, my first my first pivoting point was actually the change from film to digital. So,
Huge.
because commercial photography has always gone from film scanning to digital so that you could print it on a press,
Yeah.
we knew that the time was going to come where that scanning process would go away. So the minute that the digital camera was invented, my dad already had it on his radar before he was taken out of the business. So we had gone to convention, we had educated ourselves about what was happening in the industry. So in 1997, I think I was about 3 months pregnant with my first child. And I had a client come to me and they said, "You're either going to buy that digital camera or we're going to buy it and take all our photography in house."
Wow. Wow.
And
Well, that
they
brings
were our
up such a
biggest
good,
client.
yeah, it just came on like a freight train, but it sounds like your dad had the foresight to see the pivot coming. Like it's like embrace it or get run over.
Well, and that one we had warning. That
Yeah.
that pivot point, like I said, the roads were paved. We knew it was
Mhm.
coming. But the investment was $209,000.
Wow.
So
Wow.
at that time, you had to replace all your cameras, all your lenses, you had to replace all your lights, plus buy the digital part of it, and
Yeah.
then buy the computer that was this big for it
Wow.
to run all of that. So, because again, we're still riding the momentum of me being young,
Yeah.
I went into it head first. I'm like, why
Right.
not? It's only
Let's do it.
$200,000. Let's do
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
so it cost more than my first house.
Yeah. But thank
Um,
God that you had that almost naive enthusiasm because if you had been any the wiser, you might have hesitated or you might have dragged it out or you might have, paid the dumb tax in a different way if you hadn't embraced it. But instead, just
Absolutely.
leaping in sometimes is the very best yes that you can make.
Absolutely. And there's so much of my career that I'm grateful for that naivety because I wouldn't have taken those risks now. You know,
Yeah.
at my age, knowing what
Yeah.
I know now, I would have been terrified. So
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate for that. I had many, many successful years after that because that client stayed with me. They were our biggest account. Um, and that kind of rode me into the next pivot point, which was 9/11 and the
Wow.
recession that hit the business because of that. My parents only had to go through one recession. My grandparents only had to go through one recession. I, being fortunate, have been through three, if you count the
Yeah.
V-shaped one for 9/11, then the long recession, 9 and 10, or 8 and 9 and 10, however
Yeah.
you want to call that one, and then the COVID recession.
I was going to
So
say the
three,
pandemic on top of that, if you're counting that as a recession, which all those are major, major economic shifts in the marketplace.
correct.
And now we've got another freight train coming down the pipe with AI.
We sure do. Yes. Hmm.
And to your point about seeing it coming with digital, you're right. I mean, so many changes in marketing. Of course, the internet wasn't even a thing when we
No.
started in marketing. I mean, that there wasn't the Google gods didn't exist, and so all of the cloud-based applications and all the technology we've had to embrace. What do you think about AI? How is that going to affect your industry? How is that already impacting you? What are you seeing shift in the marketplace?
Well, luckily, this one we've seen coming also. So, like,
Mhm.
this is where the recession of '08 and '09 and the 9/11 recession and the COVID recession, you didn't really see that coming,
No,
especially
it was
since
just
I'm
like
not,
blammo. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not an economic person. Like, I can't read the indicators, though I'm very good with finance and accounting. I still couldn't prepare for it. And then the Great Recession had the technology disruption where cameras went from being unaffordable to being affordable and in your phone. So we had
Mhm.
both the economic disruptor and the technological disruptor. So here now with AI, we've seen it coming. We know it's coming, but what I'm seeing so far is some pushback on it. So, especially because I work a lot with professional services, people who
Mhm.
their image truly matters. They have to be known, they have to be trusted, they have to be authorities in their field. And so far, I am using the AI to expedite my editing process, to add editing to my files that we could not do in the past, that I had to hire someone to do, that I can
Yeah.
now do, or my team can do.
Great efficiencies.
And, America has a truth in advertising law. That's where I'm going to be very interested to see how that evolves because right now retailers are refusing
Yeah.
to let your packaging go onto their shelves if the images are AI generated. Like
Oh,
I'm seeing a surge in product photography, which I long thought was dead. Um,
yeah.
Amazon took so much of our product photography because they have those studios set up all over.
Right.
Well, now they're bringing it back because Amazon's using the same images for multiple organizations. They're not
Mm.
reshooting the product if they're similar enough.
And it's
So I'm
getting
seeing
flagged.
it's getting flagged and they're not able to use it in
Yeah.
the packaging and they don't own their own copyright. They don't own their usage rights and they can't fight back.
Wow.
So over the last 2 years, I've seen my product photography increase. I've seen the retailers pushing back on the manufacturers. We want authentic imagery so that our customers know exactly what they're getting. Where I am seeing AI take over a bit is in the headshot photography. So
Hmm.
I've already done over 100 this month. And the people like lawyers and doctors and financial advisors that need to be trusted, they're not going the AI route because they want their people to look real.
Real.
The
Hmm.
people that are maybe not as important that they look authentic, that's where we're seeing some of those headshots go to a cell phone that then gets converted into an AI created headshot.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm so glad to hear though that that you're seeing some pushback in the authenticity camp on some of this, because I think that that's going to be one of the biggest shifts with photography and video in this age of AI, is that people are just not going to know what to trust. And it's just going to be like, how can you differentiate? How can you tell the difference in some of these cases? So I'm glad that they're standing up for some of that transparency.
Well, and what's interesting to me, I'm as you are, I'm sure, since you are in marketing, you're a studier of what's going on. I
Right.
tell people if you're following the trends, you've missed it.
It's already too late. Yep.
And Google is now, when we started blogging and when we started trying to drive organic SEO, it was words.
Hmm.
And now Google is now checking websites and dinging people if their images aren't authentic or if they
Hmm.
have stock. So AI is telling you when you've got AI and when
Hmm.
your copy on your website is not authentic, when it's been written by Chat GPT, they're actually dinging people and lowering them from that organic search engine. And so I just find it very interesting that we're at a day and age where AI is telling you stop using AI.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. And now they're also indexing social media images, and they're starting to create a bridge in that organic search value where tying people's social content into that is also a thing. And so you're right, it's going to get more and more important that people pay attention to it and don't just try and take the easy route for everything. It can seem convenient, less expensive, faster on the surface, but those are long-term hits that you're taking in terms of your brand image, in terms of your search ability, and with AI becoming coming on as a search engine, that's going to be super important.
Well, none of us can afford to fall in our rankings. So, for those of us that have been in business for a long time, we've spent thousands upon thousands of dollars getting our website to be easily found.
Mm-hmm.
The unnamed customer, somebody who we don't even know they've gone to our website and how to find them. We've
Right.
worked really hard to get where we are, and we can't slow down now. We've got to change with the times, and we've got to use AI in a way that is effective for our business without driving down the customer's ability to find us easily.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And you actually bring up a really good point, because I think people have been asking that question, like, well, with AI as a search engine, is that changing? Is that formula changing? And I think the good news is that people who have invested in that content in order to have that searchability, that content still really counts. And that's the stuff that AI is using as well to index and pull up results. So I think, as an encouragement to fellow entrepreneurs, if they're the ones that have been investing, keep doing it. If they're not the ones that have been investing, you better start right? Because there's nothing like the compound interest of time adding to that content, a bit, being found. We've
Well,
seen
and when
some of
I
our highest blog traffic is 4 years after you publish the blog.
Right. And when I look at my index page that tells me what AI is reading, I have to somewhat smile at myself because I'm like, yes, everything I've been doing is indexed right here.
Exactly. All that stuff I published 3 years ago, it wasn't for naught. And when it's easy to let it fall off, I know that's the long play that sometimes I find that short-sighted entrepreneurs don't. They want the quick hit, they want the ads, they want the easy lead gen, but it's just like anything, right? Like we're not great as a short-term, delayed gratification society. Like we want the quick hit. We don't want to invest in something that's going to pay off 3 years later.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I find for my business, everything I do that's new takes at least 12 to 18 months to take root. So
Hmm.
whatever it is. So I launched a new website 2.5 years ago. where we started doing educational pages about photography. I started seeing those pay off 18 months later. Last year, my big push was to do marketing and branding, blogging, and educational pages by having guest bloggers from other companies that had a specialty in that topic. I won't see the results of that until 2027. And so
Yeah.
every year I start a new something for the website that is new, that will
Yeah.
reach a different audience. And I don't expect to see anything from it for 12 to 18 months.
Well, I love that you're bringing that up, though, Leslie, because I think for our listeners, it's really important to hear from people who have been in the trenches for a long time. You have the perspective and the expertise to see that trend over time, right? And to therefore probably have some baked in patience that and contextual understanding so that you can really appreciate the pacing of that. And I think
Well, and
people
when
they need your perspective on that.
when I was young, I used to take such offense when I didn't get the job. Like
Mhm.
I was the right photographer. I could have done that. Why didn't I get the job? Where now I realize that I just got a job this week from somebody who rejected me 2 years ago. And
Yeah,
so, and it's not personal. It is business.
right.
And I think as a young entrepreneur, you're so hungry. And I was so hungry, and I'm still hungry, but I plant so many seeds. I sow
Mhm.
so much for the future so that when one doesn't come through, the next one
Right.
will. And that makes the losses less devastating when you don't get the deal.
Yeah, I love that long-term mindset, Leslie. I think you could teach classes on that. I don't think entrepreneurs often have that kind of temerity, and that cadence. You're speaking some really, good words of wisdom here for people. So what's next for you? What do you see in the next 12 to 18 months for Studio 13 that you're excited about? What kinds of new business are you seeking? To find out there, how can people reach you, all that kind of stuff. Tell me what's in the future here for you.
So I've worked really hard over the last 4 years to not only scale the business, but to scale my team, because you have to be planning that if you're planting so many seeds, that you have to have a team that can do it. And so about 5 years ago, I transitioned my business from a solopreneur with just one assistant to a team of 1099 photographers, videographers, drone operators, social media people, salespeople, and administrators.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
I now have a team of about 10, and
Mm.
I am seeing the fruits of my labor, like I said, from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that are really starting to pay off. Where I am taking the jobs that are more complicated, I am taking the jobs that speak to my passions, and then I am able to get someone else on my team to do the things that might not require my experience and skill set. So that's where I'm at, and that's where the future of this is going.
Yeah.
I am looking to start consulting more with organizations regarding their visual brand identity. Are they following their strategic brand with their imagery, with their media? Taking what they've done to
Oh, that's
implement
so
it
good.
and making
Yeah.
sure that it is reflective of it. Because the brand images, they fade. People go to all the money to do the strategy. And then after they do like the first 6 months of implementation, they're like, okay, what's the next big thing?
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm going for the business, is to take my 30 years of experience to not only continue to capture images, but to help companies stay on brand with their images.
Yeah. Wow. Well, again, with the foresight. So, in that transition from solopreneur with one assistant to scaling a team, right, and giving other people the opportunity to participate in your vision, to link arms with other professionals, what was the realization in there? I know I heard you say, well, if you're going to plant all these seeds, you need people who can do it, but you must have seen another payoff for yourself in that in just having some extra hands on deck to help you do this. what was
Sure. I
the
mean,
what was the transition for you there, because a lot of people get stuck thinking they have to do it all, Leslie.
well, and it's a terrible story. I'll be very honest with you. My assistant of 30 years that believed in me died unexpectedly.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
excuse me, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
And so she did not take care of herself. So lady entrepreneurs out there, get your mammograms. But
Mm.
when I lost her, my daughter came into the business. Well, she came to me immediately and she's like, Mom, I've watched you kill yourself. I've watched you work yourself into the bone, nights and weekends, doing it all. And she
Yeah.
said, I'm now that Tina's gone, because she was part of our family.
Yeah.
Now that Tina's gone, you've got to reinvent this business and I'm going to come on board and I'm going to help you. And so my daughter spent 2 years setting up standard operating procedures for my assistants, setting up standard operating procedures for social media,
Mm.
and setting my business up to grow so that my balance of life could change. And this ability to use 1099 employees so that I'm not paying taxes on them, I'm not paying workers' comp, I'm not having to worry about health insurance. And that allows me to ride the roller coaster that is marketing and advertising. So when it's slow, I don't have to pay anybody. When it's busy, I've got people I can pass it on to. After 30 years in the community, even though I work on a nationwide basis, I know a lot of people, and I was passing on business to other photographers anyway, because there wasn't enough of me to go around. And
Yeah.
so instead of passing it on now, I bring it through my business. I make
Yeah.
less profit on them
Yeah.
because I insist on paying my photographers a fair wage for what they do. I'm
Mhm.
not going to run one of those businesses that are, down and dirty, cheap photographers, because I want the quality to stay high.
Yeah,
So
and the
I
relationship value is there too. It sounds like that's important to you too.
Very much so. And relationships with the customers, they
Right.
expect something different from me than just clicking the shutter. They expect an
Hmm.
overall experience. So that's
Yeah.
really how I got to this transition point. Was I needed a better work-life balance. I needed to find a way that I could enjoy my grandchildren, that I could enjoy
Wow.
my children, enjoy my husband,
Yeah.
and not, and there still comes times, I mean, I'm still running a business where I'm the primary producer. So there are still times that I want to cry myself to sleep because I'm so exhausted. But there are also times now where I can go. I took my kids to Europe for a week over Christmas,
Yay.
just me and my two kids, and I could shut the business down because I had a team of people that were taking
Yeah.
care of everything for me so that I could totally be in the moment with my children.
That's
So
amazing, Leslie. That's amazing. Well, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have something you wanted to add? No, I was just thinking how remarkable it is that, like you said, sometimes the silver lining is in the darkest clouds, and when you have to make a shift. And I'm so sorry to hear that about your longtime assistant. But you came into the business and had to say yes when your stepfather had the stroke, and then this event actually was precipitous for your daughter to take notice and see an entree. So sometimes, our greatest blessings come out of these injunction points. And I guess if I had anything to add to that, I would offer to entrepreneurs who are listening, sometimes when you're in those moments, you don't trust that can be a blessing. Like that feels like the world is ending. It's Chicken Little. How on earth are we ever going to survive this? But you've obviously developed a lot of resiliency along the path, and you've got, some remarkable people around you who have breathed belief and support into you. Your father, your daughter. I mean, what a blessing.
well, and my mother is still alive. She's 84 years old. I talk to her every day. And my mother still claims I'm the best photographer the family's ever had, which is saying something because we're all photographers.
Yeah.
So, and she still shoots. She's a fine art photographer. She still shoots, even though now it's with her iPhone. She does some amazing stuff. And just knowing that I have survived, I
Yeah.
have made it through. And it was bumpy when Tina died. I went through a horrible time because she was my primary editor. And so I didn't edit my own images. So you have to find the
Yeah.
solutions. Luckily, I have wonderful clients. When I stumbled, just face it
Yep.
up. I'm stumbling.
Yep.
My editor's gone. I tried a new
Yep.
editor. They didn't do as good a job. Always own it whenever
Right.
stumbles happen, because everybody's human.
Yeah, no, it's such a good point, and I think that people really appreciate it when you err on the side of over communicating and just humanizing yourself. Because here's the thing, I mean, they're going through stuff too in their business. They've had those moments where maybe they weren't performing or couldn't show up in the way they wanted to, too. So really, by sharing that journey with people and owning up, and just stepping out in integrity with that level of communication, you're also giving people permission to have their own messy lives and to be honest about it, right? And
Correct.
I think together we only get stronger in that.
I
So,
agree completely.
wow. Well, you are such a great example of that resiliency in action. And for me, momentum, it really is just about one step in front of the other, right? And keeping that going long enough. And here you are 30 years later. So, what a story, Leslie. That's amazing. Well, how can people, who are you seeking to work with? I know you've got some, big corporate accounts and you've been doing this a long time. What kind of work do you love to do? How can people reach you if they're interested in finding out more about Studio 13?
Sure. Studio13online.com. It's a terrible website name, I know, but that's what I got from all these years. So studio13online.com. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And what I'm looking to do as I grow is I'm getting more and more nationwide accounts that are looking for consistency. So
Mhm.
even though we have a ton of work here in the Indianapolis and the Indiana area, Midwest, it's getting harder and harder to find photographers that can give a nationwide company consistency, whether it's their headshots, their product photography, their architectural work. So if it matters to that company, that's definitely where I'm looking in the future. I
Okay.
also love the fact that I can come alongside companies and provide them with a level of service and expertise they can't get at many other places these days. So people that have a problem with their photography or their media, maybe that they don't deliver on time, they don't invoice on time, they're having a scheduling problem. We can normally work through that on their behalf to make everyone's life easier. People in corporate America are exhausted. They are expected to do more with less resources in a faster period of time. And so anything we can take off of our marketing team and bring it onto the Studio 13 team is valuable.
Awesome. Awesome. So you can serve clients nationwide, and it sounds like you have a really good eye for not only sharpening the brand image, but keeping it consistent. And I love the fact that you can do both the personal part of the commercial photography, the headshots and the professional images, but the product photography as well and the architectural. I think that that is such an amazing combination. So, yeah, I mean, and it definitely sounds like you have an operational awareness of the stresses these teams are under and how to help them, leverage that load. So that's pretty amazing, Leslie. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. And I hope that people will go to studio13online.com and check you out. And I know that your story of persistence, of perseverance, of pivoting in the middle of multiple recessions and pandemics and digital freight trains coming down the pipe and now AI, here we are. Like these are not moments for the faint of heart. So keep fighting the good entrepreneurial fight. You're obviously a great example to your daughter and many others in your family as well.
Thank you
So
so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
yeah, it's been great, Leslie. I'm so happy that we had this time together. So onward and upward.
Onward and upward.
Thanks again so much for tuning into the Momentum Podcast. I truly appreciate you being here. If you're a founder or entrepreneur with a story to share and you're in the growth phase of your business, I'd love to hear from you. Visit podcast.diamond-group.co to apply to be a guest. Again, that's podcast.diamond-group.co to be a guest. If this episode helped you, inspired you, or made you think differently, please share it, leave a review, or hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Remember, my mission is to spotlight stories and strategies that help purpose-driven business owners grow with clarity, confidence, and intention. To learn more about the Diamond Group, you can go to diamond-group.co. I'm Theresa Bassett. Remember that I'm with you and for you. Onward and upward. I'll see you next time.